We got a pretty big rules update today, as well as some changes to the way certain cards work in Sorcery Contested Realm. And I think it's very important that we go over these updates with so many constructed events coming up soon. I don't want any players to have surprises at my store or at any other event. So let's go ahead and jump right into this, starting out with the changelog. Now this changelog, this is going to be on Curiosa. This is part of the new codex that Ira's been working on with the team. And I am so happy to see this. I think this is extremely important. You can now search the codex for different things, like say you want to look for the new information on Intercept. You can search Intercept and it will immediately bring up a little pop-up sidebar here where you can see all of the mentions of Intercept and choose whichever link you want to click on to follow. If you want to look at it as a basic ability, or if you want to look at Intercept concerning Airborne, you can just click on it. It'll take you right there. I think this is really cool. Very, very awesome tool for all of the players going forward. But let's jump into the changelog for today's updates. These are pretty massive, I think. Starting out with when attacking undefended sites, the attacking unit strikes the site now, damaging the site. When a site is damaged, the controlling avatar loses life equal to the damage dealt. Now that last part is per usual, it hasn't changed. But the important thing here is the attacking unit strikes the site. This means that cards like Dapple Vampire and Blood Ravens that heal you when they deal strikes now work when attacking sites. I think this is pretty big. Now these are the only two minions that heal when striking at the moment. That could change with the next set with Gothic. I wouldn't be surprised. Mask of Mayhem is another big, this is probably one of the cards that people are most excited about. Whenever a nearby minion can attack, it must. Nearby strikes deal double damage. Now, prior to this update, this really only applied to minions fighting each other. Or strike a minion, another minion striking another minion. Now this applies to any time a unit strikes a site. Anytime a unit attacks a site, now that strike that it deals to the site deals double damage. That's pretty huge, I think. Mask of Mayhem wasn't really terribly playable in the past. You'd see it pop up here and there, but now I think I think we're going to see Mask of Mayhem quite a bit more, especially in these early days immediately after this update. So that's definitely something to look out for. Pumping up a vampire. I mean, imagine, pumping up a vampire with Gigantism, giving the vampire +6 power, and then gaining 10 life from attacking a site. I think that we're going to see more vampires played, more Mask of Mayhem. I'm not sure about Blood Ravens. It is a legal target for the Falconer, which can fetch up a beast from your spellbook. It's still just one power. Maybe in a deck with trinkets, maybe in a deck with overpowers, maybe something that comes out in Gothic. It's still just one power, so I'm not sure. I would rather have this over a stronger minion that can put pressure on my opponent. We'll see. I'm sure people will play this, a lot more often soon as well. So yeah, this impacts cards like Mask of Mayhem, Dapple Vampire, and Free City. Free City is another big one. Free City. Now, before this update, you could defend with Free City and basically negate an attack. So if somebody tried to attack Free City, you just say, oh, I want to defend with Free City. It will deal 3 damage to the attack, or it would deal 3 damage to the attacking unit. And then the owner of Free City wouldn't take any damage or lose any life because of the way that the rules work prior to this update. Now, because there is a strike happening on the city by the attacking unit, the owner of Free City does in fact lose life equal to the amount of damage dealt to it. So it still deals damage back, but it's definitely a downgrade. It's a nerf to Free City. And we have nerfs to other defensive sites too, as we'll see soon. So moving on to the second bullet point here. For move and attack, you don't declare your attack target in advance. Originally, you would declare the movement and the attack all in one go when you activate the move and attack ability. Now you don't do that. Now you declare the movement, and then after you resolve your movement and any triggered abilities, then you choose to attack if you want. Now there's a slight caveat here, and I think there's some clarification coming for this, hopefully. Because Intercept was changed recently to become a triggered ability, because Intercept is a triggered ability, this is slightly confusing. This phrase here does not include Intercept. If you choose to move and attack, and you move and then you don't attack at the end of your movement, any enemy units there at that location can trigger the Intercept ability despite this clause here, and intercept your movement to that location. Intercept has changed somewhat. I guess we'll just skip ahead here. Intercept triggers when an attack doesn't happen, you see here, not when a unit enters a location. So that simply means once a unit movement stops, only then, if that unit, that enemy unit, chooses not to attack, or if the player chooses not to attack with an enemy unit, then you may intercept it. So therefore, movement never gets stopped by intercept, and speedy units with movement plus X can slip by defenses. So the only time you can intercept now is when an enemy unit stops movement on a space that you already have an allied minion or avatar at that is untapped, and then that enemy unit chooses not to attack. If the enemy unit attacks, then you can't intercept. It's attack, then you can defend. But if an enemy unit moves onto a site, stop, and then that's the end of their movement, and then they don't attack, then you can intercept. So that's intercept. Attack triggers only happen once, based on the initial target of the attack. E.g., dodge roll only works if the target was directly attacked, not if they defend. So this is important for a couple of reasons, but one right off the top of my head is Wills of the Wisp. Before, you could use Wills of the Wisp to defend and then trigger its ability and teleport into the void. Now you cannot do that. Wills of the Wisp says that whenever Wills of the Wisp are attacked, they may teleport to a nearby void or location to evade the attack. So because now the attack triggers only happen once, and only if the target was directly attacked, now Wills of the Wisp cannot do that cute little trick anymore. Attack and kill triggers, e.g. Battle Mage and Sea Raider, resolve as long as there was an attack for each minion killed, based on kill credit. Okay, so I think that this is a pretty important change. Before, when Battle Mage would attack, even if he would kill multiple minions that defended against him, he would just get the one trigger to draw. Now, if he kills multiple minions, because he attacked, he gets a trigger for each minion killed. So he gets to draw a card for each minion killed. And then for Sea Raider, whenever Sea Raider attacks and kills an enemy, its controller discards their topmost spell. You may cast a spell once this turn, ignoring threshold. So more clarification, Sea Raider does get to trigger its ability multiple times if it killed multiple enemies after an attack. When a unit defends, it automatically becomes a legal target for the attack, superseding the silver rule. E.g., if I attack Whiteheart and you defend with a different minion, that minion is now a legal target for the attack. So yes, the defending unit does become the target of the attack, but no, it does not trigger the attack trigger if it has an ability that would otherwise trigger. So the defending minion does become the target of the attack, but the window to trigger the attack trigger has already come and gone, and it is not the original target, so something like Wills of the Wisp will not trigger. So we went over Intercept. Here's another big change I've been advocating for a while now, is the word you on avatars. It is official now. You does mean the player. So for Death Speaker, Enchantress, Templar, and Spark Mage, any of your spellcasters can cast a spell, not just your avatar. So for instance, with Enchantress, there was a lot of confusion over this, and many different times over the last year. Whenever you cast a spell, you may animate target aura until your next turn. It's an aura minion with power equal to its cost. So it's official now, for sure. You can use any minion to animate auras, to cast a spell in order to animate an aura. And then Death Speaker, you may cast one dead minion each turn, and for 0. So any of your spellcasters can use that ability now. Spark Mage, another big change. Target nearby location, deal damage to another random unit. They're equal to the sum of air threshold symbols on spells you've cast this turn. This includes spells your other spellcasters have cast. I think that's a pretty big change. Pretty nice. I love to see that. There are a couple of weird things, like there are some cards that still say you that need to refer to the avatar. Cerberus is one of them. Must be summoned to your location. Cerberus in chains automatically follows you and can't move itself away. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Anytime you see the word "you" on a card like this, and it's talking about, you know, proximity in the realm, obviously the player is not inside the realm, so this is obviously going to refer to the avatar. Going forward, I'm sure they're going to avoid this type of language on cards for clarification reasons. Moving on to Stealth. Stealth breaks when you interact with the realm. Non-minions can't have stealth. So two big changes here. Prior to this update, some minions like spellcasters like Morgana would not lose stealth when they cast a spell. Now, anytime you interact with the realm, you lose stealth. And interacting with the realm means striking, casting a spell, activating a special ability, not activating a basic ability like move plus attack, activating a special ability, not a triggered ability, not a passive ability, a special activated ability, something like Pudge Butcher's activated ability to shoot the hook. Note that only activated abilities can be activated. Triggered abilities and passive abilities aren't activated. Note that a special ability is different from a basic ability. Deal damage is the last thing that you can do to interact with the realm, even if the damage is prevented. This is interesting. I actually didn't catch this at first. Even if the damage is prevented, interesting, you still lose stealth. So, okay. So that's good to remember. Even if the damage is prevented, like say, by Shield Maidens or something like that, you still lose stealth, even if you would have dealt damage. So strikes, casting a spell, activating a special ability, dealing damage. Those are the ways that you interact with the realm, and they will all cause you to lose stealth. Now, the second part of this bullet point here is non-minions can't have stealth. This is another big one. So glad they finally added. This means that if you cast an infiltrate on an animated aura, if you're playing against Enchantress, if you cast Infiltrate on their animated aura and then you pass turn, when it goes back to their turn, because Enchantress says that the aura is only a minion until their next turn, now that aura, it loses its minions. It is no longer a minion. Therefore, it no longer has stealth. Non-minions can't have stealth. So if it's an aura, it loses its minion type, it loses stealth, meaning it goes back under their control. A unit, and moving on to the next point here, a unit can't activate the drop ability after they interact with the realm in a given turn. So we already went over interacting with the realm. Now, if you've interacted with the realm, a unit cannot activate the drop ability on minions they're carrying or on artifacts they're carrying. I think that's another big one, because let's go over this one more time. If you remember, interacting with the clicked on Intercept. Interacting with the realm means or includes striking, casting a spell, activating a special ability, dealing damage. So even if you activate a special ability, even if you didn't deal damage, you can't drop an artifact anymore. If you cast a spell, you can't drop an artifact anymore. means you can't play hot potato with a Philosopher's Stone anymore. I think that's going to be a big change for some people who like to stack up their spellcasters and pass around the stone. And I'm sure there are other instances where this new rule will come into effect. But yeah, once you cast a spell, once you activate an ability, a special ability, or deal damage or strike, you cannot drop anything that you're carrying, whether it's a minion or an artifact. So moving on to Airborne. Airborne, this next bullet point, Airborne works on avatars. This is really cool. This is a nice little change. I think we all kind of wanted Airborne to work with avatars. It was a little bit weird that it didn't, and that's pretty straightforward. I like that. This has other other implications too when we talk about. Let's see here. It's somewhere on here where it's talking about FAQ changes. Maybe it's up here. There's a point where it talks about minions carrying other minions. Oh, here we go, right here. Units that carry other units. If the carried unit can't move in the chosen direction, the unit doing the carrying still moves. This is not it. Basically, I'm looking for where it talks about units that carry other units confer the movement abilities that they have onto the unit that they're carrying. So if you have, and the reason I'm bringing it up is if you have, say, a warhorse can carry your avatar. And now avatars can have airborne. Say you cast Power of Flight on your warhorse to give it airborne. Now, because your warhorse has airborne and it's carrying your avatar, it's giving your avatar airborne. So your avatar can move diagonally away from the warhorse. I think that's interesting. It's just something to bring up. A weird thing that might happen, a weird interaction that might happen at some point. But it's interesting to think about and keep in mind. So airborne works on avatars. Immobile means can't move itself. Now this is a massive change, I think. Immobile units can now attack and defend at their location. So immobile, before this update, immobile did prevent units from attacking or defending at all. If they were immobile, they couldn't move, they couldn't attack, they couldn't defend. They said it in their recent video on their own YouTube page that they wanted to distinguish between disabled and immobile a little bit more clearly or more effectively. So so this is the reason for this change. So immobile units can now attack and defend at their location. This is pretty huge because when you look at the cards that have immobile as a keyword, these are important cards. These are playable cards. I know for me, I like defensive sights. So the fact that Quagmire and Bog no longer prevent attacks or defending, I mean, that's a big deal. Bog is definitely taking a huge hit. Quagmire's taking a huge hit. Quagmire is still effective, and Bog in a similar way too. Like it still prevents your opponent from, say, playing a charged minion on their side and then coming to your side and attacking, right? Moving onto your side. It will still prevent a minion from moving onto your side and attacking, but now it's definitely less of a defensive card because if there is already an enemy on your side, both Quagmire and Bog and Entangled Terrain, these cards will not prevent the minion from attacking your side if it's already there. Another thing about Entangled Terrain, many people were using Entangled Terrain in Battle Mage decks to prevent enemy minions from blocking Battle Mage. Now that's out the window. That's a huge hit to certain Battle Mage decks. So keep that in mind. And now the fun part about this rules change is the Pudge Butcher. Now the Pudge Butcher can attack as well as use its abilities. So, and it can defend. When I'm playing Pudge Butcher in say the Earth Air mid-range decks that I play, or any other deck, and I'm playing against Battle Mage, it always is sucks. It's always a terrible draw when you see Pudge Butcher against Battle, or it was when you see Pudge Butcher against Battle Mage, because he can't defend. And yes, Battle Mage is a big fat body that can deal 5 damage to a Battle Mage, but you really want a defender when you're playing against a Battle Mage. You want to have sustainability. And now the Pudge Butcher, you can have a site forward, you can play the Pudge Butcher on the site forward, and now if the Battle Mage tries to attack that site, Pudge Butcher can actually block that attack now. So it's a buff to Pudge Butcher. And I think Pudge Butcher was already one of the best cards you can play at 4 mana, definitely one of the best minions you can play at 4 mana, and now it got a buff. So this is one to look out for. Being able to play Pudge Butcher and then blink Pudge Butcher onto your opponent's side and just attack for 5 if you need to, that's a big deal. So we'll be seeing, I think, a lot more Pudge Butcher and probably a lot less of Entangled Terrain and a little less of these other defensive sides. So we went over these as well. Oh yeah, Sir Galahad. I didn't even mention Sir Galahad. He's another minion that can attack and heal you once he deals damage to a site from the strike. Alright, so where are we at here? We went over units that carry other units. Oh yeah, we didn't quite go over that. So units that carry over other units, if the carried unit can't move in the chosen direction, the unit doing the carrying still moves. If the 2 units then don't share a location, the carried unit is automatically dropped. I believe this is how we are already playing. It's just a clarification. So if you have a warhorse that is carrying another minion, and that minion has 3 or more power, and the warhorse tries to enter a Gnome Hollows, the warhorse will continue on to the Gnome Hollows, but it will drop the larger minion before that larger minion leaves the site it was on to enter the Gnome Hollows. So next bullet point here, auras can be cast to anywhere, including all void if desired. This is a pretty big change because in the past there were ways to delete an aura. Like I believe if you had like a Cloud City under an aura and you like move the Cloud City and the aura was stuck in the void, sometimes I believe the aura would get banished. I can't quite remember, but definitely you couldn't cast auras to just pure void. So for instance, if you started your first turn, if you're going first in the game and you have a tower in hand that gives you an extra mana and you have an evil presence in hand, you couldn't start the game off with a bang and just do tower, turn 1 tower plus evil presence right on your opponent's head and get ready for the turn 2 tower plus headless haunt attack for 4. You couldn't do that. So it kind of stunk for the spirits decks that when they would go first, if you open hand and you're like, oh man, I've got a tower and I've got evil presence and I've got a spirit and another tower for charge attack on turn 2. If you went first, you couldn't do that before. Now you can. This is a pretty big change for spirits decks. Being able to turn 1, drop an evil presence into the void on your opponent's avatar, turn 2, play another tower and attack with charge. That's a big deal. So watch out for spirits decks coming out of the gate strong now if they're going first. So moving on to oversized units. Often called large units in the past, have an official term. Also, effects that specify its site or its location mean a site it occupies or a location it occupies for oversized units. This is relevant for cards like Spin Attack. So Spin Attack says an ally strikes each enemy at its location. Prior to this update, you could play Spin Attack on, say, an animated aura or a mountain giant, and it would just strike everything on all 4 sites. That is no longer the case. That is a bit of a nerf to large units, to oversized units, I should say now. Now there is one kind of weird case, land deed. Just one to be aware of. It is up in the air right now, but currently, land deed says Bear has you control this site. Because land deed grants this ability to the bearer, and the bearer is a large minion in the case of a large minion carrying this land deed, even though the oversized minion is carrying land deed only on one site, it grants this ability to the oversized minion, and currently it works like this. Currently it works that the minion does control all of the sites that it occupies, and you can see that right here. A mountain giant with land deeds are quite serious about the law. Though the land deed itself only occupies a single location, it grants the ability to its bearer. Therefore, all sites occupied by the unit carrying the land deed are yours. Someone asked a question in Discord recently about this, and I think that Ira is going to the team to clarify this interaction and to make sure that this is design intent. This may change, but currently land deed still grants control of all 4 sites to a mountain giant or to an animated aura. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the last few bullet points here. Clarified how cost is calculated, including alternate costs like Eremos Mercenaries combined with the Maddening Bells. They also clarified the application of ongoing effects, which changed some previous FAQs like King of the Realm versus King of the Realm. I think this is a pretty big one. We should probably go over this here. The important part is, let's see here. Ongoing effects apply continuously during their duration. If they do not have a listed duration, they apply indefinitely while the source is in the realm. For example, King of the Realm's passive ability is an ongoing effect that gives you control of all mortals. Gnome Hollow's passive ability, blah, blah, blah. Between each event on the storyline, apply all ongoing effects. That is, the game is very regularly applying ongoing effects, both before and after each event on the storyline. This is something that a lot of people forget or they miss. An ongoing effect, a passive ability, a passive effect, an effect that a passive ability applies, anything like this, these things are applied always. In between every single event that happens, the first thing that happens is the game recognizes all of these ongoing effects. And that has to happen. Most of the time, the application of ongoing effects is straightforward. Simply apply them. Complex interactions are described below. So apply all ongoing effects before checking for minions dying. This was always the case before. This is just a clarification here. If there are multiple ongoing effects, the game will apply all of them before checking to see if any minions died. So for example, if you have a boss troll that's taken 1 damage this turn, then you move it to a location that is nearby both a Wicked Witch and your House Armed Bannerman. And remember, Wicked Witch reduces power by 2, House Armed Bannerman increases power by 1. Both the Wicked Witch and the increases power plus 1. Both the Wicked Witch and the Bannerman generate ongoing effects with their passive abilities. If the game applied the -2 power from the Witch first, the boss troll, which started at 3 power and has 1 damage, would die if you recognized minions dying before applying the rest of the passive effects. But because all passive effects have to be applied all at once before the game moves on to check for a minion dying, then both the House Armed Bannerman, which gives +1 power, and the Wicked Witch, which takes away 2 power, happen at the same time, and so the boss troll lives. So therefore, between each event on the storyline, the game applies all ongoing effects before checking for minions dying. Apply ongoing effects in order. So this is another important part of this. If ongoing effects overlap or conflict, apply them in the order listed here by layer. So now we have a list of layers that we can use to help us figure out how to resolve certain situations when we're playing the game. So I love this. I love seeing this, giving us these strict guidelines that we can follow. So 1, copy effects. That's first. 2, control effects. 3, type changing effects like Bower of Bliss or Island Leviathan, which changes into a minion. Ability adding and removing effects, disabling effects, and affinity changing effects, e.g. Power of Flight, Watchtower, Root Spider, Tide Naiads, Drought. So something to keep in mind, there's always this question, what happens if a Root Spider is underneath Tide Naiads? So this is still going to resolve the same. So because all the passive effects have to apply before you recognize a minion dying, even though the Tide Naiads is flooding the site, right? You think, oh, the Root Spider is going to get flooded, he's underwater, but the Root Spider disables the Tide Naiads. So the disabling effect of the Root Spider must be applied along with the Tide Naiads trying to apply their flooding effect. But the Root Spider disables the Tide Naiads, which removes their flooding effect, which means the Root Spider lives. Every time the Root Spider lives underneath the Tide Naiads. Power settings, so number 5 here, power setting effects, e.g. shrink, power addition subtracting effects, overpower, wicked witch, power multiplication effects like warp spasm. Within each layer, apply the effects based on their timestamp from oldest to newest. So this is a big change here. For ongoing effects generated by passive ability, e.g. King of the Realm, Root Spider, their timestamp is when the card entered the realm. For ongoing effects generated by activated or triggered ability, Floodplain Bog, their timestamp is when the ability was activated or triggered, not when the original source entered the realm. So we have examples here to show why this is important. So if you play King of the Realm, if I'm playing against you, you're my opponent, you play King of the Realm, and then I play King of the Realm after you on my turn, the game applies both control effects in layer 2, both of them. Since your king is older, so meaning first or earlier, the game starts with that effect. It doesn't matter whose turn it is, it's all about the timestamp when it comes to passive effects. Your king gives you control of all mortals. You played it first, you have the oldest, earliest timestamp. Your king gives you control of all mortals, including my King of the Realm. Then when the second king's ability is being applied, he's already controlled by you due to the first king's ability. Therefore, you control all mortals and the first king wins. So just to recap, I'm playing against you, you're my opponent. You play King of the Realm, then I play King of the Realm. You have both King of the Realms because yours was first. The same situation happens with smokestacks. If you play smokestacks, I play smokestack. It doesn't matter whose turn it is. Your smokestacks was first. It's the earliest, it's the oldest. It gets applied first. So mine coming down is disabled. So just a reminder, smokestacks, other nearby sites lose their abilities. So since your smokestacks is older, the game starts with that effect. Your smokestacks causes my smokestacks to lose its ability. And then we have this final example here, and this is a bit of a flip. In this case, because it's between Flood and Drought, if you play Flood and then I play Drought, the game tries to apply both affinity changes effects in layer 4. Since you played Flood first, the game first gives the affected sites a minimum of 1 water affinity. It just means it turns them into water sites. Then when my Drought ability is applied, the affected sites have no water affinity, therefore the Drought wins. So if Flood had been played second, then the Flood effect would have been applied second and thus would win. And remember that if an activated ability or triggered ability creates an ongoing effect, the effect applies based on when the ability activated or triggered, not when the original source entered the realm. For example, Floodplain's activated ability would win against Drought, even if the Floodplain entered the realm before Drought, as long as the Floodplain's activated ability was used after Drought. So I know it's a lot of words there, but basically if you're playing a Flood and then somebody plays a Drought, then their land sites now they lose water. But if you have a Floodplain and you activate the Floodplain ability on a site that's under a Drought, because the Floodplain's ability was activated, that gives it that timestamp, the newest timestamp, and it will flood the site. So moving on to the next bullet point here, we have clarified application of damage replacement and damage prevention effects. I think this is a pretty important one too. Replacement effects always go first, e.g. Lance, Critical Strike, Golden Harp. Strike damage life loss caused by nearby units is reduced to 2. These replacement effects do happen first now, get ordered by the controlling player as they wish. Damage prevention effects, like Shield Maidens, which causes nearby allies to take 1 less damage, and Tufted Turtles, which prevents damage the first time the turtles takes a hit, always go last. I think this is pretty important because there was always a question like, does Shield Maidens apply first? Like if you're doing a critical strike, it says the next time an ally strikes a unit this turn, it deals double damage. So if an ally has 4 power and striking, and the Shield Maidens is nearby, does the Shield Maidens reduce it before or after? Now it's very clear that Shield Maidens reduces after. So if it's 4 power, it would be 8 minus 1 because the Shield Maiden reduces it by 1. So the target of the attack would take 7 damage. So the next bullet point here, as if adjacent effects allow the controller to choose the cardinal direction. So anytime a card says do X, as if adjacent, or if a minion says it's as if adjacent to some site or other minion, then now you can choose their cardinal direction from which a projectile is shot. All right, so moving on to the final bullet point here, clarified kill credit. Now this kill credit is not highlighted here, so I've got it pulled up over here. I think this is important to know. Some effects care about who did the killing, e.g. Crown of the Victor, which says bearer has +3 power if they've ever killed a minion. Only units can get credit for a kill. Determine credit for a kill when a minion dies, i.e. marked for death, and priority order highest first. Did a unit just strike or deal damage with a special ability? Did a unit just resolve a magic spell they cast? Did a unit just activate or trigger an ability, including abilities granted by artifacts? If any of the above are true in priority order, then that unit is the killer. If a unit is tapped to pay for an ability, e.g. Payload Trebuchet, which says tap bearer and another ally here, discard a card, deal damage equal to the discarded card's mana cost, etc. They count as activating the artifact's ability for purposes of kill credit. So the killer must be a unit, but multiple units can share credit for a kill if they both share the same priority. For example, Grapple Shot will only give credit to the ally who strikes, not the Spellcaster. This is because of the order here. A unit just struck. Did a unit just strike or deal damage with a special ability? Did a unit just resolve a magic spell? So because the priority is striking here, then it's the unit that strikes, not the Spellcaster. If 2 units defend against a single attack, both defenders could get credit for the kill. Note that passive abilities and other ongoing effects are not included in kill credit. Only activated and triggered abilities are included at priority 3. So I think that's important to keep in mind. So if for some reason say some minion took damage and then found itself near a Wicked Witch, and Wicked Witch has a passive ability that gives it -2 power. Wicked Witch could never get kill credit using its passive ability. It's not an activated ability, it's not a triggered ability, so that's something important to keep in mind as well. Changelog, FAQ changes. So the final thing, I'll just go over this pretty quick here. Some FAQs did receive changes. There were some FAQs that were removed that were a bit superfluous. Battle Mage and Sea Raider abilities trigger for each minion they attack and kill. We went over that earlier. Here's a big one. Serwyn Hydra is immune to non-keyword lethal damage. So even a major explosion or a strike from a Great Old One isn't enough to kill the Hydra. That's a huge change for the Hydra. It's a huge buff. For the Hydra, still dies from a single point of damage from Pit Vipers or Poison Nova because they have the keyword lethal. And it still dies from being drowned or buried. It doesn't have burrowing. And it's still vulnerable to mesmerism, infiltrate, and all that. So really interesting buff to Hydra now. That definitely makes the Hydra more resilient, quite a bit more resilient. So I'm interested to see what happens there. I'm sure people will be trying out decks with Hydra more it really wasn't played that much prior to this update. Merlin's ability is clarified to be a passive ability, so you can look at your top spell anytime on your turn, but you can still only cast a spell when it's normally allowed. Typically, you can only cast spells during your main phase. And here it says if a Crave Golem were attacking during your start phase, you could use Merlin's ability to look at the top of your spellbook, cast a dodge roll, because Merlin allows you to cast spells from the top of your spellbook. Moving on, clarified that Awakened Mummies causes a fight when they unburrow. So this is kind of an interesting one. Because on the card it says they unburrow in Intercept, but because Intercept no longer stops movement, if you have a minion that has a plus movement ability, that minion can potentially continue its movement after fighting the Awakened Mummies. So just a little bit of interesting side thing here that maybe people aren't catching. So the mummies, when they pop up, they just cause a fight. So treat the ability as when an enemy unit moves onto the ground above them, they unburrow and fight. So if you have a unit that has +2 movement, and you're going to move past the mummy site, as soon as you move on top of the mummy site, the mummy pops up, interrupting the resolution of the movement, fights the minion. Then if that minion with the plus movement survives, it will continue on to its original destination. So something to keep in mind. I'm sure people will ask that question quite a bit if they happen to be playing Awakened Mummies. So clarified Crave Golem's ability. This is something a lot of people are often confused about with the Crave Golem. Like, can he attack airborne? Can he attack stealth? So does it use normal targeting rules when attacking? Yes, except that it may attack other allied minions if they happen to be the chosen target. It still cannot attack airborne or stealth units unless it gains a special ability that allows it to do so. So 100% of the time, for example, if there's one adjacent minion with airborne and another without airborne, it will attack the non-airborne minion 100% of the time, unless Crave Golem somehow gained airborne. So it's not going to try to attack an airborne minion or stealth minion and then fail. It just is not a legal target for it to attack. Moving on here to the final bullet point in this update here. Some cards were updated, and these are some of the cards that are updated. I think it's very important to know that how Ascalon Phoenix works. Ascalon Phoenix should be treated as if Ascalon Phoenix would take fire damage, it gains +1 power this turn instead. Fire damage is any damage from a fire source, such as a fire minion, striking, a fire sight, or a fire spell. So keep that in mind. For people who are confused by the original text of the card here, which I was one of those people, I didn't think it made sense. We are to treat it as any fire damage whatsoever. So if it blocks a fire minion strikes it, it gets +1 power instead of receiving that damage. Druid, I believe the update for Druid here was in this third entry here. Yes, it's a Druid. So if a site loses its abilities, does a Druid's flip side ability still apply? Can this affect Bedrock? Yes, it's the Druid's triggered ability, not an ability of the site. The Druid's triggered ability causes the site to deal damage. Also, this point about kill credit, I don't remember saying, but maybe it was here before. It's important to keep in mind. Can the Druid's flip side ability give the Druid kill credit? Yes. In the kill credit calculation, this ability wouldn't apply at priority 1 during the striking phase, or in the strike priority, since the site is dealing the damage, not the Druid, but it's still the Druid's triggered ability, and therefore would grant credit at priority 3, which is where it allows kill credit to be given if the source of the kill was from a triggered ability or activated ability of a unit. So see Kill Credit Codex for more details. Important to keep in mind, Updraft Bridge, this is just clarifying that when a minion moves off of it, it still has that extra movement. So treat as if airborne minions atop Upcharge Ridge move freely away. And then we have Archimago. Archimago, I believe there are 5 FAQ entries here. I believe this last one is been clarified. Can I use this ability to cast Valor or Dodge Roll? No, but, because the Archimago's ability is an activated ability, which you can only use during your main phase when nothing else is on the storyline. And then I think this is important too to know. What happens if I pay the cost of banishing 3 spells, but I cannot actually cast any of those 3? If you cannot cast any of those 3 spells, they remain banished and nothing else happens. You didn't cast a spell. If you can cast one, you must, but if you can't, then nothing happens. Oh, and that's right. There is one other thing. When using this ability, must the Archimago be the caster? No. Any of your spellcasters can cast the copied spell. So I think that might have been a change too. So pretty important there. And then Geomancer. This is, I believe, about this 3rd entry here. Does Mirror Realm copying an Earth site or Valley Delight choosing Earth count for Geomancer's first ability? Yes. And this is something that the splitting events on the storyline thing here. This is something that we have played with for a long time, and we've just never had it in writing. So this is pretty important. Just to read this entry here. Yes, Mirror Realm works because it applies as it enters the realm. Valley of Delight works because the genesis effect of the site interrupts the resolution of the Geomancer's ability. When the second part of Geomancer's ability actually resolves and looks at the site is indeed an Earth site. So see splitting events on the storyline for more details. So let's go ahead and look at that here, because this is very important. And now we have this in writing. As some events are resolving from the storyline, they split up into smaller events. Note that events are only split up as they are resolving, and not when they are added to the storyline. That's important because of the way certain things are added to the storyline, or the order in which things are added to the storyline. You cannot rearrange this order. So when an event is split, it is split up as they're resolving, as the event is resolving. The following are the reasons to split up an event as it resolves from the storyline. So basically, anytime a card is entering or leaving the realm, anytime a card moves in the realm, or anytime you have explicit card text that says one at a time, like firebolts or tactical move. Anytime you have a situation like you find in these 3 bullet points here, the event is going to split up on the timeline as it's resolving, which means it can be interrupted by other triggered abilities or passive effects that might change the resolution of that event. So Ira gives an example here. I have an allied Azure Ridge Caravan at Site A here. Site R is a Summer River. There's an enemy, Lady Isolde, at Site I here. I cast Grapple Shot. The storyline will look like this. Grapple Shot effect. If there were any cast triggers, e.g. Enchantress, Finvale Muse, Ring of Morgan, etc., those new events interrupt the storyline, assuming for now we don't have those. Grapple Shot starts to resolve. I choose Azure Ridge Caravan as the ally who shoots a projectile, hitting Lady Isolde. At this moment, the caravan needs to move. So we handle the movement on the storyline. The movement path is set, and now Grapple Shot is split into smaller events. So the storyline now looks like this. The first part of Grapple Shot is done, and then Azure Ridge Caravan moves from surface of A to surface to R, and then Azure Ridge Caravan next would move from surface R to surface I, remaining parts of Grapple Shot and then resolve. But if something happens in between here, it can interrupt those split segments of the event. So the same thing for something like Firebolts. When Firebolts, one bolt would fire off. If it kills a minion, there is an interruption there, and that minion, say Apprentice Wizard, would die, get removed from the realm before the other Firebolts get shot and resolve. So that's important to keep in mind. Another example of splitting events, let's say I use the Druid's ability to play a site and summon Tani. I tap the Druid and the storyline looks like this. Just to skip all this, basically you play a site, Druid says that when you play a site, if you played a site and you don't control Tawny, summon her there. So this part would get split up as it's resolving. So you would play the site, and say the site is a desert and allows you to deal 1 damage to a nearby location, to all units at a nearby location. Then that desert was fully resolved before you finish the rest of this ability, the summoning of the Tawny. So like you could play a desert, choose the desert for whatever reason if you wanted to. Say there's a Wills of the Wisp in the Void. You play a desert on the location where the Wills of the Wisp is. Then you can ping that desert that you just played with that 1 damage to kill the Wills of the Wisp before Tawny gets summoned there. Because this ability that Druid has here is split up on the storyline as it's resolving because the card is entering the realm. So a little bit of complicated stuff there, but I think for the most part it's pretty straightforward and something to keep in mind when you're playing with some of these effects. Vivian, and this final point here is just clarifying that Vivian does not copy another Vivian's ability. So it says here, treat as Vivian has the other printed abilities of all avatars and spellcasters in the realm wherever she is. And then this clarification that a lot of us are already familiar with. What happens if Vivian uses the Druid's ability to summon Bruin and flip? She'll summon Bruin and then she'll flip and she'll just be a dead card in the realm. She'll just be a nothing burger in the realm. She won't have any card types or anything. She will still get destroyed by Roots of Yggdrasil. But other than that, like, she can't be targeted by things that say target minion. It's just, this dead card, flip card in the realm. So that's about it. That will cover it. That went a bit long. I was hoping to get through it quicker than that, and maybe I rattled a bit there. But if you have any questions about rules or about any of these updates that you'd like to ask or you want further clarification on, be sure to go ahead and ask those in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. There are also Discord channels if you're a part of the Discord community, both in the official Discord and in the League Discord, where you can ask rules questions, and people are pretty quick to reply there as well. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this helps you going into the constructed tournaments that are happening soon, and I hope you don't get surprised by any of these new changes. Definitely, if you've been practicing with certain decks that use Entangled Terrain, Pudge Butcher, or preparing against Pudge Butcher, mobile's a big change. Mobile's a big change. I think that declaring attacks at the end of movement is a big change. Dropping artifacts, you can't drop artifacts if you've interacted with the realm. That's a big change. There's a lot of big changes here, and they need to be taken into consideration when deck building and when playtesting. So let me know if you have any more questions, and I will catch you guys in the realm. See you next time. Bye.